Hi, everybody, and welcome tonight to Talking Elite. We have a very, very special episode tonight. This episode is dedicated to the Iron Sheik. Fortunately, he did pass away last week. So we're going to get into a deep dive into his career and who the real Iron Sheik was. The Iron Sheik was, of course, one of the biggest heels in professional wrestling. I don't think any heel on this planet or have came past, I don't think nobody matched his heat. Just one of the best talents and just one of the craziest, stories of how somebody got into professional wrestling. There was a lot of things that I didn't know actually going into this episode. So I'm super excited for you guys to check it out with us. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce my panel tonight. We have our wonderful producer, Connor, and we have Adam. How are y'all doing tonight, guys?
I'm doing good. I know it's a little, I know we're not on schedule, but we make things work around here. So
yeah, that's okay. We had technical difficulties before we started. So for those of you guys that are watching this live in the chat, we do appreciate your guys' patience. And if you guys have your favorite moment as we are going along talking his career, please leave your favorite, Iron Sheik story, match, or moment in the comment section, and you guys will have a chance for us to read it here on air as we go. So I hope you guys are ready and kind of looking into the Sheik a little. I didn't realize that he was ranked number 3 in Iran, number 3 in the U.S. in the Iranian military. So one thing that I learned about Iran is they were at the time he was coming up and starting his amateur wrestling career. He literally started at 14 and worked his way up, got into the military, and was because the army, that's where all the wrestling was, at least from what I gathered. And he was number 3. He was right behind basically the gold medalist for Iran, and Mr. Gojmara Takati, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I butchered that. But he was one that really was training the Iron Sheik. And I didn't realize this, but he was at one time, he was the bodyguard for the ruler of Iran. Did you guys know that?
Wow. Mm-hmm. I did not know
that. I know that me and Adam listened to a lot of Busted Open, but stories had it, and I heard it on the show from last week that apparently there was a couple of fights to the death that he had, allegedly. Rumor has it. So the Iron Sheik was a complete badass, when he just from starting up. Did you guys hear any of his Iranian background or any of his start in amateur wrestling before he came over to the States?
It's the funny thing that you mentioned that he was something to do with the military, right? With
military and bodyguard.
One of his first characters in WWE was Colonel
Mufasa.
Yeah. He played that was his first character, I believe, before it became the Iron. I could be wrong, but
no, Iron Sheik. So that's like I said. So Iron Sheik, that was his first, or actually no, it's technically his second. His second character. He actually went under his real name for a little bit when he moved to the States. So this is another crazy story. So when I was researching, I watched the documentary on him. He left Iran. Okay, he was basically in line to be the next gold medalist for the country. But after his mentor committed suicide, apparently it was due to the fame. But what historical figures and other historians have thought was he was killed by the Iranian government because he was almost bigger than their ruler. So he left because he was afraid that he was going to be next. So he came over to the United States, lived in Minnesota, and the crazy thing about it, he was the coach for the men's Olympic team.
But that's something that you don't.
Yeah, he was an assistant.
Yeah,
that's something that you wouldn't think that he would be. Like out of anything of his life, he was the assistant of the Olympic team, and he was in India, right? Or what was his home country?
Iran.
He was Iranian, yeah.
And it's crazy, like, to think, especially like his character, you know, being one of the most anti-Americans out there, but he was so dedicated to this country, though. That's the thing. Like he, you know,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but was he a soldier in his country in Iran?
For Iran, yeah, he was in the army.
Yeah, I read something about that he was.
Yep, he was in the army. He was literally a bodyguard for their ruler. I think it was Shah. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he was their bodyguard.
Pahlavi was the ruler.
Yes, thank you.
Ahmed Reza Pahlavi, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think you were mentioning about the death of his mentor. You're talking about the amateur wrestler he idolized, right? Taki.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, because he was competing for a spot on that team. And like you said, I think they said they found they said it was a mysterious death. They said it was a suicide, but like you said, it could have had something done with the government. Mm-hmm. And that was in the 70s. So that's when he transferred over. And actually, I was very surprised to learn that because I didn't really research. I mean, I did research, but I found out that he got trained by Vern Gagne, who a lot of people, was AWA. That was his coach when he came into professional wrestling. That's who he was trained by. Him and Billy Robinson. I didn't really know too much about Billy Robinson. I guess he was from Britain, but he did a lot of touring of several other countries in professional wrestling. So, but he was trained by those two.
And it's crazy too, because while he was training, so he was coaching while the United States Olympic team while he was training, but when he was training, like it took him a little bit for them to say, "Hey, brother, like this is how the business works." So he was trying to beat the out of his coach and the other students. Like, he even like trained with Ric Flair for a little bit too. Like Ric Flair was like, I don't know if he was learning or if he had just come in to like kind of be like a guest or spar. But there's a story out there where his coach, like after hey, like, he was gonna prove him wrong because the Sheik was just constant go. Like even when he was a white meat baby face, we'll get to here in a second, but he did not have no quit. And literally it took them breaking his ankle for him to realize what about the actual truth of the business is. So he, like I said, so after he healed that up and really was wrestling through it, he was a white meat baby face. If you go out there and look, he's got clean shaven, long flowing hair. Like he looked like a good looking guy. And I was like, what? No way. I just, when I think Sheik, I don't think clean shaving, lion mane. And while he was, helped setting up the rink and doing, small matches here and there, he met his wife. And it's funny because when he met his wife, so they were together for over 40 years. And I'm like, that is incredible for someone in the business to probably have had some cheating scandals and some other narcotic stuff going on. But he was with his wife for over 40 years. Wow. And he wrestled on his wedding night.
Wow, that was something.
Married and then went right to work. So I was like, so he was really dedicated to the sport of professional wrestling for sure. And then his coach, his wife, gave him the name the Iron Sheik because there was already a Sheik at the time. And he's like, there's no sheiks in Iran. Well, he became the first.
Yeah.
And when that was like, I like, that is hilarious. Like looking at it, like, and then next thing you know, his wife hated that look for, like, the mustache, the shaving the head. She hated him for that. So that was really crazy. And it kind of struck gold a little bit too, because as he was finding out who the Sheik character was, this comes to probably where he got all of his heat and started, really starting to see, the bad guy from the other country thing, but capitalizing how he did when the basically Iran, the Iranian government held U.S. citizens hostage at the embassy.
Wow.
So they were able to capitalize on that heat and basically made him the biggest villain, where he was almost getting shot almost every night in the craziest amounts of booze. So did you guys know that one?
Yeah, I knew that was the feud that really sparkled one of the biggest feuds in WWE history. With at that time the biggest name in wrestling, you would say Hulk Hogan. That's where a lot of that heat came from. I read a few stories where when they went outside, like after the show, there was this woman who had like a rifle ready, and then it was a lot of stuff like that back in those days, because like that was real stuff.
Yeah. Adam, how big of a fan of Bob Backlund are you?
Or I loved his charismatic attitude, the way he would walk to the ring, all littlest guy just walking like he had a purpose. I know he won a lot of matches with like sleeper holds. I mean, that was his go-to. I got to go back and watch a couple of old Bob Backlund, matches, but I always liked his style. I always liked his character. Yeah. So, but I mean, I know one of my favorite things about the Iron Sheik is he's one of the earliest wrestlers you can think of that did a lot of wrestling in Japan. Back in the late 70s, when wrestling in Japan was starting to grow big. Nobody understood the Japanese style of pro wrestling, and he wrestled against Japanese legends like Antonio Inoki. So I mean, he had some matches with him in Japan, and I always liked that. We talk about AEW's Forbidden Door with them, and New Japan Pro Wrestling talent, and Sheik was just part of that early rendition of, hey, here's a pro wrestler doing a lot of tour matches in other countries, and biggest one is Japan. So I actually do enjoy that, because I had to go back and watch some of his old matches if you can find them. It's very hard to find old matches, but if you can find them, you can actually find one that he had with Antonio Inoki. So I always enjoyed that. So,
and it's crazy. It's also crazy too. Before we get into his WWF run and his match against his first match with Bob Backlund, but looking at it, him and Bruiser Brody were the first really two outside big names that came over to Japan besides Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
The two biggest bad guys in professional wrestling. And so I know Davis, he put a comment. He remembers when Sheik won his first world championship. So Sheik comes in 1979. He debuts. This is how big the guy was as a heel. He debuts in WWF in 1979 at Madison Square Garden, where he would win the first Battle Royale to take place in the Garden, and basically get so close to Bob Backlund's championship, but he loses his first match against Bob Backlund. So that kind of spiral.
Yeah, no, but he also had a couple of matches with Chiefs Jay Strongbow and Bruno Sammartino too. So
I forgot that
was towards the tail end of Bruno Sammartino's career too. when he started feuding with the Sheik.
It was almost like a passing of the torch for that generation to it's crazy to think, it feels like it's so like short period of time between San Martino and Sheik, but wow.
One of my favorite matches, earlier today I was watching quite a few Iron Sheik matches on Peacock, and one of my favorite ones was with him and Bob Backlund. At that time, wrestling was very, very different. You didn't see a lot of moves you see nowadays. And the way, Iron Sheik's boots, those had to hurt. Because if you see his boots, if anyone has seen, like, I don't know how to explain it, but they're very, very different. So, and like, I remember a story of him punching someone's mouth and their mouth bleeding because of how his boots are. But one of my favorite matches was him. My favorite matches with Iron Sheik was with Bob Backlund and what Davis mentioned. Or do you want to continue with that? I don't want to go the story.
No, but you're good. But that's basically where we're leading up to, after, basically to transition the belt over to Hulkamania after a 5,000-day run with Bob Backlund as world champion. That comes to an end, and Iron Sheik taps him out with the camel clutch. Remember correctly.
Yep.
And basically, he would hold the championship for 1 month. And then lose it to Hulk Hogan. Which I think is the funniest thing, because, man, the guy held a grudge for almost, 40 years?
I think he still did, probably. So when he died, probably.
His last tweet, and like I said, we have a whole section at the end of the show that's dedicated to his tweets. His last tweet was Hulk Hogan. And so, man, the man really hated Hulk. He really, he really hated Hulk, but if it wasn't for the Iron Sheik, you would not have Hogan's Hulkamania and that great run as a world champion. To think he also got offered by another company, got offered $100,000 to break Hogan's leg and take the belt back to I think it was the AWA. I think it was the president of the AWA, and take it back and have that huge, and hopefully get steam and have another big company. But the Iron Sheik was dedicated to the WWF.
I mean, when he first left the first time, we got to remember when he debuted, he actually went by a different name than the Iron Sheik. He went by the Great Hussein Arab, is what his pro wrestling name was. And he really actually found the Iron Sheik moniker in Jim Crockett. I don't know if not a lot of people know that. He was trying to reinvent himself after his first stint with WWF. And he ended up wrestling for Jim Crockett Promotions. And then he settled into the Iron Sheik persona while with Jim Crockett. And he actually got that due to the events of the Iran hostage crisis that was going on in the 80s. And, he was feuding with Jim Brunzell for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship while he was with Jim Crockett. But that's basically where he found the Iron Sheik moniker that he's so well known for in WWF. And that's where he also feuded with Ricky Steamboat, was Jim Crockett Promotions. He also wrestled Dusty Rhodes, Jim Crockett Promotion. We can do almost a whole episode on that because you had so many stars in that promotion and a lot of legends in that promotion too that we can almost have a whole episode of that. And a lot of people don't remember, but Sheik was in that promotion for a while.
And it's crazy to think that too, looking at it, how many stars came from Jim Crockett or went through his promotion. And I feel like now it's like, I feel like more people need to look into that and see.
I mean, also you have to look at, he went from Jim Crockett to Mid-South Wrestling. And then he went to Championship Wrestling in Florida and then Georgia Championship Wrestling before making his comeback back to WWF.
Yeah,
he left in 81 from his first stint, and he didn't come back till 83.
Yeah, because I was like right at the time, because 83 is when he formed formed his first tag team and won tag team gold with the Russian. Was it Koloff? Was that his name?
Nikolai Volkov.
Oh, Volkov. That's it.
Yeah, Nikolai Volkov.
Nikolai
Yes.
Volkov.
Yeah, Volkov. And it's crazy to like also think about too. So one thing that I've seen a lot of companies, at least even WWE, still does to this day is that badass foreign heel or foreign heel team. They have to be bad guys, no matter what. No matter if you're from Japan or Russia or looking at it, or Bulgaria, because like with Miro, but looking at it, these two were the first really hated outside country team that came in, and especially like with people just coming off the fear also the Cold War. Like this was almost like a match made in heaven. They're probably one of the most dominant tag teams in the era of the classic era of wrestling.
Well, yeah, no, I totally agree, and you are right. They hit it right on the head, especially in WWF. They were, playing that whole story of the end of the Cold War. So any foreign character was seen as an evil character. If you were from Russia, if you were from Iran, you're the villain. Look at Papa Shango, Kamala. Like you look at all those characters, they were also just stereotypes of those countries, and they didn't get any cheers. Like they were portrayed as villains and evil. So having him team with Nikolai Volkov was probably the smartest decision, because that was basically the first anti-American tag team you ever saw in professional wrestling. Was in the 80s with those two. And then you put him with a manager like Classy Freddie Blassie as a manager, as a mouthpiece for them. It is genius. That is almost as genius as putting Andre the Giant with Bobby Heenan. Like, it's just like, what are we doing? How do you put that guy with him? Like, but yeah, no, I remember when they formed that tag team because before that they had the America versus Iran with him and Sergeant Slaughter, like feuding. And then now you put him with Volkov, and my God, like they just ran rapid as the most evil heel anti-America team that you'd ever seen.
And it's also crazy to think too, because Sergeant Slaughter was a heel, and this was when like Vince's like first decision as he was taking the company away from his father. But he's like, I'm gonna make Sergeant Slaughter, I'm gonna make him a good guy. And he came out, and remember he like having cheers to him because he's coming out and chanting USA, 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 and then having the whole crowd say the Pledge of Allegiance. That and he's like saying that gave him the biggest goosebumps of his career.
Yeah, those were the days when characters were actually how do I say it? The characters were real life, because a lot of stuff was happening in real life back then. So you got Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan was the American. He was the American hero in wrestling, basically. So matches like Hogan against a lot of these guys would make a lot of money because it's real life stuff going on.
I think that's one thing that they benefited from, really. Think about it. You benefit from real life experience in all pro wrestling. You still see that to this day. And then looking at it too, I guess Connor left us for a little bit. But looking at it too, he won at the very first WrestleMania against the US Express.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and it's one of those ones I haven't watched a whole lot of matches from the first WrestleMania. I do apologize to our fans. I guess I'm not a purist because I haven't watched the first one all the way front to back. But to know that he won the first ever tag team title match at Mania, that's incredible.
Sorry about that. I'm a little technical.
Oh, you're good.
Problems.
Do you guys know what their shtick was every time they came out?
What was the shtick?
Every time they would come out, Classy Freddie Blassie would tell the crowd to be quiet as Volkov would sing a very poor rendition of the Soviet national anthem. And then after he would sing, which was met with boos from the crowd, Sheik would get on the mic and say, Iran #1, Russia #1, USA, and any other country. And he would spit. He would just make the spitting sound. That was their shtick every time they came to the ring together.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch those entrances because that just sounds amazing. Like that's like the best way to get heat in the 80s. Wow.
Yeah.
You know? And also looking at too, just going back to Bob Backlund for a second. So remember those giant clubs he would just go crazy with around his head and do those crazy arm workouts with? So there's only 2 people besides the Iron Sheik that can lift those 75-pound clubs. Okay. Bob Backlund was the first one. Okay. I didn't realize how strong, because he doesn't look like he would be a big, strong guy. But Bob Backlund, I watched the clip of it the other day where he was able to get those clubs over his head. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then the next one, Mark Henry. That's how him and Sheik became really close, and almost like he was almost a young boy for a few days with Sheik, because he kept hearing that Sheik was coming. Sheik was coming to Monday Night Raw, and that he was bringing the clubs. One day, Mark Henry walks into the locker room, sees those clubs, and he starts doing it. And Sheik just like, oh, my boy, we friends. Like, we strong men. We big, strong men. And the only way that a Sheiky baby can do, you know? But there was only 3 people. Yeah. Because think about it. He would have contests. He would have contests with bodybuilders, professional bodybuilders that could not lift those 75-pound clubs. It is the funniest thing. So you guys listening to the show and from the panel, if you guys haven't gone back and watched it, go spend 5 minutes and just go watch the contest that Iron Sheik did. Like he was like the 80s troll. Like he was like, it was the funniest thing to watch. I get he was this big bad Iranian bad guy, but for him to embarrass like bodybuilders, like, you know, like people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's just crazy.
He doesn't look like he would be, you know, stronger than a lot of bodybuilders. It doesn't look like that, but
real quick, we're gonna go to the comment section before we start talking about Sergeant Slaughter. It looks like Mike Morris talked about we were talking about the whole his feelings towards Hogan, which is interesting because there's a documentary on YouTube. He hugs Hogan in the documentary. So Homeboy was trying to keep kayfabe alive for 40 years. But Hogan actually has nice words to say about the Sheik.
It's hard to know I don't know. Maybe he was working that whole storyline his entire life. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
The lines are always blurred, you know?
Yeah. Because he went on, it was one guy's talk show, like TMZ or something, and he gets up and says, let me tell you something, brother. I cannot stand Hulk Hogan. I cannot stand his family. He was going off about his whole family and the American people. And it's like 2010.
Yeah, no, it was the Howard Stern show, wasn't he? Like,
yes,
he was on the Howard. Yeah, and Macho Man called in before he passed, and he was like, "You didn't want to know something, you jabroni," and went into very explicit things. Like, so I can't repeat them on the podcast because they're very.
Yeah.
Just to see him like start undoing his pants, and I'm like, "No, Sheik, no, we're on TV." You know, and look at another little side thing too before we continue, but. This Sheik literally found gold through YouTube and Twitter. Yeah. Like after his wrestling career was done, like he was keeping that character going. His wife did not like it at all, but it was the funniest thing to see him be just Sheik. You know, he was just the Iron Sheik inside and out, and it was the funniest thing to watch some of these clips. And of course, his tweets are legendary.
Oh yeah.
If you made a drinking game out of all the tweets he said about Hogan in one day, you'd be really shit faced.
Yeah.
So he blurred the lines really well, you know. So who knows because looking at that documentary, if you get the chance, go spend the hour and a half and watch it. But to see like he really like to see how people like fans and how other wrestlers were just loving him and loved being around him. So it's crazy. So if you get a chance, go watch it. It's a really good documentary. It looks like we have a new listener tonight. We have Morgan. She's seen us on Twitter, and if you haven't checked out our interview with our guest from last night of time of recording, we did interview Eric Rowan from the Wyatt family, and it was in the Bludgeon Brothers, and it was a really fun interview. So if you get the chance, go listen to it. Thank you, Morgan. We hope that you are enjoying the show, and thank you for listening, and hope you subscribed, and hope you're having a great day. Thanks for listening. And then Mike, you're gonna have to leave that comment because I don't or tell a story, or if one of you guys know it.
I know.
Sheik and Andre, what's the story? You know the story behind that one?
Yeah, Hulk Hogan told the story, and it made me savage a little bit when he was alive. So what happened was that Andre is the biggest guy in the locker room, and the thing you were mentioning with Iron Sheik, that he was bragging about how he was the strongest man in the locker room and stuff. He was teasing Andre a lot. Like it got to the point where Andre wanted to kill him.
What?
So yeah, like they had to break Andre away from him. So one night they had a match together, and Andre goes in the ring and he massacres that dude. Like all that he was doing.
Yeah, that was Nassau Coliseum match in 1984.
Yeah.
According to Andre, he had a intense dislike, mostly due to the fact that Iron Sheik was a stiff worker. So Andre would beat the hell out of him whenever they were booked together.
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
There's a lot of other stories with Andre. Like Randy Savage was to wear baby oil, and he said, "No baby oil.
No baby oil. No baby oil. Yes.
No baby oil." Well, because you guys, I don't know if you guys ever saw the documentary on HBO. It was Andre, called Andre, and they interviewed a lot of people. They interviewed Hogan. They interviewed Vince. They interviewed Tim White. If people don't know who Tim White is, Tim White was a referee in WWF. He was most famous for taking some of the best bumps in Hell in Cell matches. But they interviewed him. He was Andre's handler, and he would tell stories about Andre. I know, we're talking about the Sheik, but this kind of relates because, Sheik and Andre had heat, but Andre just always had issues with certain people. He either like you or he doesn't like you. That was Andre. And they said Andre does not like getting interrupted when he's playing cards before a show. No. He'd be playing cards. You do not interrupt him or bother him while he's playing cards. So yeah, but with Sheik, maybe he was a stiff worker. You see a lot of stories about people being stiff workers in professional wrestling. So
in those days, if you rubbed someone the wrong way, they'd settle it in the ring and they bust your nose.
They they will hurt you.
Like that's how they take their stuff out in the ring. But there's a lot of other stories of Iron Sheik that Hulk Hogan tells. But because a lot of the Golden Era guys now have passed away, except Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter, and a few others. So there's only a handful of people that can tell stories like that.
It's kind of sad to see that, it's unfortunately it's that unfortunately the hardest time in a wrestler's life is towards the end of the Golden Era.
Is Nikolai Volkov still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
He's still alive. Yeah.
I really want to beat him because my goal was to meet Iron Sheik, but because I believe they were a tag team at some point, a little bit. Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
They were on and off for about 4 years.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. Yeah.
I really want to meet them together, but it sucks when wrestlers, not just because you want to meet them, but it's just people that you grew up on.
Yeah.
And
then looking at too, before we talk about his tag team with Sergeant Slaughter, the day that he really destroyed kayfabe. I was kind of thinking about it. let's see, what year was it? It was 1987. So 1987, him and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, USA Jim Duggan, one of the biggest baby faces at the time.
Oh,
ho! There we go. Everybody, do your ho impersonation in the comments below. But they were riding together, and Jim Duggan had a few too many, got pulled over by the cops. They get arrested. They search Sheik, and let's just say Sheik liked his medicine.
Yeah,
it was not a drug test; it was a medicine test, and unfortunately,
if this means anything to anybody, this is what it was.
Yeah, so they found him with a pretty good sized amount of cocaine, and from there they were able to get bailed out. This is what's crazy about it. So they got arrested and got bailed out, made it to the show. They're like, okay, maybe nobody heard about this. We're just gonna go wrestle. We made it, we didn't have to call Vince. We got to the show, wrestled, we're good. Next day, it's everywhere. So this was also one of the times where people were starting to, realize wrestling is not as real as we thought it was. Where, kayfabe kind of was starting to really fall apart. And there was reports everywhere that he, unfortunately, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the biggest baby faces, were out, had a good time together on their drive to the next show. I know
I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure Duggan was charged with DUI, but not alcohol. It was marijuana.
Yes,
he was driving under the influence of marijuana because weird. It's weird because of the definition of DUI when they say driving under the influence. Many people think, oh, it was alcohol. Not necessarily. It could have been any other substance that impairs your vision and your motor vehicle skills. It could be marijuana. It could be cocaine. It could be alcohol. Yeah. It could be even ecstasy, because you're you could kill someone. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it was marijuana. But yeah, no, when I remember that because that was the year I was born, and I was born in '87. But I think it was the same month I was born too, because it was in May.
Wow.
So. And I've said that many times when anybody asks me when I was born, if it's someone like just a normal person, I tell them I was born in May of 1987. I tell them I'm either a Reagan baby or I was born when kayfabe died, when Duggan and Sheik were arrested.
Well, and you think about it too, that was like really one of the first big instances of kayfabe really dying, or the start of the downfall really for it. So I don't know. I can't remember if Jim Duggan was I can't remember if he was fired, but I know Iron Sheik was fired and didn't come back until 91, if I remember correctly.
So Sheik was released in October. I don't know. Duggan might have left on his own accord. Because they were in a feud, and then they had a couple of house show matches before Sheik was released from the company. But I think Duggan left on his own accord.
Okay. Because there's a couple of stories that weren't 100% sure on. All I know is that he was let go / fired because of the incident.
I know at one point he left on his own to go to WCW.
Yep. Yeah. And that was my next thing. So he went to WCW between his Colonel Mufasa and when he got fired. And he went there, and unfortunately reports saying that he was really past his prime, unfortunately, in WCW. No, Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik went to WCW for a year.
I never knew that.
Well, it was back when it was WCCW. It wasn't WCW yet. It was WCCW.
Yeah.
So he was still with them because people have to remember WCCW became WCW.
Yeah.
Because that's when Ted Turner bought it all up and everything like that, Yeah. So WCCW became WCW. But yes, he did wrestle for that promotion.
Wow.
Yep. And he also had matches with with Steamboat, and I didn't realize this. I'm gonna see if I can find this one, but he had a match with Sting back before Sting became Crow Sting. So I was like, wow, and they were talking that he was not in the best ring shape at that time, and kind of was almost like they basically let his contract lax, so that's why they kept him for a year, because he was supposed to be done before that. And then after that, I'm not sure what all happened in between WCW and his return as Colonel Mufasa. But do you recall anything, Adam or Connor, about what happened in between WCW and Colonel Mufasa?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't just the WCCW wrestled for. He also wrestled at AWA and WWC.
So he went back to the territories.
Yeah, some of those territories, but he also wrestled Tony Atlas during that time he was away. He had a feud with Tony Atlas. And if nobody knows about Tony Atlas, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh my God.
If you guys understand that joke, then perfect. But he wrestled Tony Atlas, and then he went to NWA for 2 years, I believe. That's where he wrestled Steamboat that you were mentioning, Lane. He wrestled Steamboat at NWA. He formed an alliance with Ron Simmons. As everybody knows, Ron Simmons is the damn guy. That's where he wrestled Sting, was NWA. And then not a lot of people know that, but he was also a guest when Paul Heyman was known as Paulie Dangerously in NWA, and he hosted a talk show called The Danger Zone, and Sheik was his guest on it.
Oh man, really?
Yeah. What I'm trying to remember else. He had some other matches in that promotion because then he came back in 1991 to WWF for his third return. Here's a guy who came back 3 times from WWF, so it's like, it's insane that man has so many matches outside of the WWF with so many other names that you've heard of, but yet when he comes to WWF, it's like the same 3 people he has a feud with.
And then when he returned, he teamed with people he hated before he left.
Well, no, and that was what was genius about it. So if you look
that's when he returned. That's when he returned as Colonel Mustafa.
Yeah,
was 1991, and that's when he aligned with Sergeant Slaughter. That was their team up. Was 1991.
Sergeant Slaughter, that's how he got really good heat. You went from being, a Marine to basically sympathizing for the enemy.
For the Gulf War. It was a take on the Gulf War. They were Iraqi sympathizers was their characters. Him and Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah.
Iron Sheik has this character where you'll know what's real and what's because he could pull it off like he really hated someone. Like a lot of his stuff.
They feuded with Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan that year.
Yeah, because I have a signed poster in my room of Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania.
Wow, you met Hulk Hogan?
No, so I went. Just a little side story. I went back to see my friends get married, and as a groomsman gift, because I was the only groomsman that showed up, and he knew how much I loved wrestling. This guy that he bought this miniature poster collection from was probably about 4 or 5 posters. He kept the Warrior. He had a Warrior and an Undertaker poster that were all signed, and he gave me the Hogan.
That's awesome.
So now it's framed in my room, and I'm just waiting to meet Sergeant Slaughter so I can have Slaughter sign it. But
awesome.
Yeah, so that, and like going back and looking at that, it's just crazy to think that Sergeant Slaughter, so literally, like that was one of the biggest controversial moments of that era in wrestling, was for him to sell his soul and become an Iraqi sympathizer during the Gulf War.
Well, that's
And then the
also
face-off,
when, yeah, but then they turned him face at SummerSlam of that year.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy how that works.
So they're like, all right, we've run our course here. So now Sheik's on his own again as Mustafa. So,
yep. And then another surprising thing that happened a few years later, though, was he teamed up with Bob Backlund and co-managed the Sultan. So another one of his enemies becomes one of his allies.
and you guys know, by the way, pop quiz, you guys know the Sultan. You know who that became, right?
Wasn't it Rikishi?
It was Rikishi.
He was
The
bald.
Sultan went through a character change and became Rikishi.
He
He's
was
also
probably
the father
smart.
of the Usos. He's the
What?
father
I
of
did
the
not know
Usos.
that. There's only videos
Yeah,
of them
he's-
dancing.
Yeah, he's
Because
the
there was one
Usos.
character-
He's the Usos' dad.
Yeah. But
Because
it's so
Rikishi-
crazy to think that. Yeah.
Because Rikishi had one character, and then he became that character you're talking about. He was bald headed,
Yes,
and then
yes.
then he
The
became-
Sultan was bald. Yeah.
and
So
then he
what is
became-
what
It's
is
like
up
how-
with Vince McMahon?
like how does his like I'm not trying to pick at Rikishi or anything, but how does his body transformation happen? Like I don't know. I know he was. I'm not gonna say anymore because I don't want to offend anybody.
No, you're not offending anybody. No, but he literally went from being
Yeah.
basically he had two different formations of body. The
Yeah.
stereotypical Samoan, what you see with Rikishi and a few others are a little more heavier set. And then you have basically, I wonder if he was just underweight for his size and height. I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Adam? Like, did you hear any stories about the transition between the two characters, or just that he was the Sultan
Rikishi
1 minute?
and Sultan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know much about it because I really didn't think about it. I just always thought Rikishi was that big.
Yeah. Fair.
Because that's because I thought I recognized him when he was the Sultan in '96, but I didn't really think about it until he came off of came back with like Too Cool and like he did like the whole dance stuff. But like I knew he was the Sultan. I just didn't really notice the body change. Maybe he ate a lot. I don't know. I don't know. But
Mike Morris just posted it. Mike Morris
exactly.
Must have had
96, 97 is where you saw like Sheik like kind of transition into the whole like mouthpiece for people because he also managed Tiger Ali Singh in '97.
I don't remember Tiger Ali Singh. So
Tiger Ali Singh didn't really have a big career in WWF. He was only there from like '97 to like 2001, 2002. And then the character kind of faded out. Didn't really make it, but he co-managed it with Tiger Ali's real dad was also the other manager.
Really?
So it was Sheik and Tiger Singh. Can't remember his middle name, but Tiger Singh Sr. Him and Sheik co-managed Tiger Ali Singh. But like I said, his career didn't really go anywhere. So, and a lot of people don't know that, but the reason why after '97 she kind of disappeared was because he failed another drug test.
Yeah,
that's when they were starting to hit those hard drug tests in WWE.
As a medicine test, Adam. The medicine test.
Yeah. So.
And it's crazy because you're looking at it too, because I think his last like WWF official match, and I think Connor and I were talking about this last night, but was the gimmick battle royale where Bobby Heenan's famous words is that it'll be before WrestleMania 38 before Iron Sheik gets to the ring.
Yep.
It was really funny because Iron Sheik was in that battle royal, right? It was like the gimmick battle royal, and it's like all these people. Then like they brought all these feuds back, like all these old feuds, like Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter was in there too. Like there's all these old feuds, and they brought them back to life at WrestleMania 17, right, or 19?
It was
17.
18. Yeah,
17.
Yeah, 17.
it was really funny seeing like all these feuds. It was years ago reunite, and they bring all these feuds back into one night into this gimmick battle royal. Then Bob Backlund was in there.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that, you know, it's kind of sad to see his transition between that and his Hall of Fame induction. But, you know, he struggled a lot on the independent scene and after that, and with with his drugs, and it's crazy to see. And then another sad part, trying to bring the mood down, but one of his daughters was murdered.
Yeah,
that's really spiraling out of control. And it basically took him years for him, after he got over his drug addiction, to actually go see his daughter again, you know, her gravesite. So it's sad to think that, you know, and during the documentary too, that it's on YouTube, I had no idea that his daughter was literally murdered, and he was wanting to kill the guy, but he also had his 2 other girls to think about. You know, being a girl dad and being, you know, you always see how, you know, how massive and a monster and you know, basically the biggest heater in all of professional wrestling, you know, and how dedicated he was to his wife and kids, and for that to happen to him, like I give him a lot of props. Like he had a drug addiction, but for him to overcome that and face his demons, and was able to, you know, to eventually, you know, not forget but heal a little bit better instead of just using drugs as a crutch. It's it's really, I'm trying to bring it up.
Little pop culture, a little pop question. Do you guys know who his best man was at his wedding?
Who?
Hulk Hogan.
Mean Gene Oakland.
Mean Gene Oakland, really?
Wow.
Mean Gene Oakland was his best man at his wedding, or as he likes to call him with his bad English, Gene Mean.
Gene Mean.
That's what he calls it. Gene Mean.
Oh,
Gene Mean.
Yeah. You know, and thinking about it too, now that we're kind of now that we've kind of really explained his career in a really good hindsight, like it was a lot of cool to see. There was a lot of things that Adam that you brought to my attention that I did not know about. And it was a great, like, this was probably one of the, like, I think he was a very diverse wrestler. I think, you know, he came in at a good time, you know, got big at a good time. And then, you know, to see how, you know, see the man inside the ring. And then now looking at it looking at his life outside of the ring, you know, there's a story. There's two stories I want to share. The first one comes from Jake the Snake Roberts, and Jake the Snake and Iron Sheik were driving up. They were traveling together at the time, and you know, this is the time when, you know, Sheik didn't know really a whole lot of English and was still trying to get the cadences of, you know, speaking English. Him and the Sheik are driving. He's driving. He turns to Sheik, and he's like, and Jake goes, "Man, Sheik, you're a one tough son of a bitch." He's like, "Who you calling a tough son of a bitch? Who you calling a tough son of a bitch? Pull over right now. We're about to go." And he rips his shirt off. He gets out of the car, and Jake the Snake takes off. He literally takes off and parks a mile down the road. Iron Sheik runs up. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Jakey. Don't you leave Sheiky, baby. Don't you leave Sheiky, baby. I'm sorry. I forgot it's you American culture that when you mean to call somebody a tough son of a bitch, you mean it in a positive way."
Oh, wow. That'd have been a sight to see in person. I wish I'd have liked seeing that.
Wow. Yeah, and Jake the Snake shared that and busted open. So get a chance, go listen to the episode, because Jake the Snake does one of the best Iron Sheik impersonations too. And then the second one, so this one is more of a little personal one. So every time his daughters would bring home a guy to meet, you know, or a boyfriend, he would do two things. The first one, he would take him out to his little gym and make them bench press to see how much they could lift. And then he would put the weight that he could lift, because the man was a strong, like he was probably stronger than, you know, Braun Strowman or any of the modern big guys, besides maybe Mark Henry. But he would make them bench press. And then once they would get too weak, he would grab the bar, he would move them, add more weight, and go, just to show his dominance, that he was stronger than these guys, like that we're bringing home, and then to salt in the wound even more after these poor boys are tired. He would put them in the camel clutch and make them tap out. Just to show his dominance and how they should be afraid of him. So, and it was one of my favorite stories I heard.
I'd have been out of there. Ain't no way.
Like, no, changed my mind. It was nice meeting you, sir.
Nice meeting you, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to your daughter, but I had something come up where I'm leaving the country to go do a religious mission in Africa.
I have to go change my underwear now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was nice meeting you. I'm gonna go lay down for like 2 weeks.
You have a glorious day. Goodbye.
And it's just crazy to think that.
Did you guys know he had an other career as well besides wrestling?
Well, he acted. I know he did a lot of acting.
Yeah, he had a film career. His first movie was in 2005. Believe it or not, I'm looking at it right now. I have some notes took for this. The Tale of the Three Mohammeds, I believe that's what the movie is called, alongside Daniel Baldwin and Corey Feldman. He's been in a lot of movies. Kennedy versus Spinney, on who is the better pro wrestler. He was on Mad. What was it called on Cartoon Network? Mad
TV.
Yeah, he was on
Mad
there.
TV. Really?
Yeah, it was like a clay wrestler, and he voiced his character.
Oh, that's dope.
He had stand-up comedy with stand-up comedy Brown and Friendly, whatever that means. He done quite a few stuff in film. In 2014, the Sheik acted in a documentary about his documentary, of course.
Yeah.
Well, he also did Robot Chicken.
Yeah, Robot Chicken.
He did Robot Chicken?
Yeah, he did Robot Chicken. Anytime they reference like old WWF stuff, like he would do that. He would do his voice for his character.
Well, that makes sense because Seth Green's a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah, Seth Green loves wrestling.
Yeah.
And Eric Andre show had him on there too.
Wow. And of course, can't forget the Howard Stern show,
Yeah.
That was his fun moments and all those YouTube videos as well. But
yeah, you wouldn't think he would have a lot of also he's in his life. You wouldn't picture that he done, but he done a lot in his lifetime between military to wrestling to film to beating up people to he done a lot in his life.
Yeah. And then don't forget so was 2005 the first Hall of Fame class?
I believe they had it one in 19 something, and then
I'm pretty sure they've had it before a while ago.
Okay, because I know he was inducted in 2005, and literally like one of the biggest like classes of like any of the Hall of Fame, whether your opinions on it or not. But so he was in the same class, 2005 with Hulk Hogan, Bobby Heenan, Cowboy Bob Orton, Hot Rod Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, and Jimmy Hart. So that's
1993 was the first year of the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Then they stopped doing it for a few years, and they brought it back in 2003.
Well, yeah, no, because 93, Andre the Giant was the only inductee.
Oh, gotcha.
Then I know they did.
2002, they were renamed. Yeah, I think
2003, 2004, like that. A lot of years they stopped doing it.
They started doing it. They started coinciding it with WrestleMania weekend in 2004.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So,
yeah, the 05 class was like the golden era. Hogan, Piper, Sheik. I know there was other classes with golden era people, but the whole class as a whole, 2005 was the golden class.
Yeah, that was.
Well, yeah, no, because you had Hogan, Piper, Cowboy Bob Orton, Jimmy Hart, Paul Ordenoff, Nikolai Volkov, and Sheik.
Yeah, that's pretty massive class.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And then, do you guys know what year he wrestled his last match?
2021.
No, 2000. So he wrestled in 2010, and I couldn't find what team they faced, but his last match was with the great Chismo himself.
Wait, Black Machismo?
Black Machismo.
What year was it? 2010?
2010.
Wow.
That was his last
18 years
match
ago.
with Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal was his last tag team partner.
That is
His last match. And I couldn't find the match, and I couldn't find who it was with.
Wow.
So if you know the comment section,
that's definitely not two people I'd say teaming up out of anyone.
Yeah.
Sheik Machismo.
For sure.
Yeah. So that was his last match. So, man, looking at it, he had a very great career. You know, he may not have won as many championships or had a longest reign as like Hogan or the Macho Man, but man, he had probably one of the most decorated and most memorable runs of any heel in the company. I'd say he had a better. I feel like when you talk heels, I feel like he isn't the one that comes to mind. At least one of the ones on my Mount Rushmore list of heels for sure.
It is weird that he was inducted 2 years before the original Sheik.
Really? Oh, because
the original Sheik was inducted in 2007.
Really?
By ironically Rob Van Dam and Sabu.
Because aren't they related?
Yeah, well, Sabu is related to the original Sheik.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because
so he's the uncle of Sabu.
Okay.
And then
uncle is, and I think you said RVD is his
nephew,
step nephew or just nephew.
It's either the two. I know he's some kind of nephew though.
So he's basically the nephew of Sabu.
Yeah, because I know he trained him. So,
oh wow!
Because when he was on here, he talked about that we asked him what was his favorite matches, and he said that he couldn't say RVD because that would be because he trained him.
Yeah.
So, but that's how I found out they were related because I had no idea that all that that Sabu and RVD was related.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that. And then it's just it's small world, isn't it? Really small world.
Yeah.
As we start to wind down here and finish up our show here, do you guys have any favorite tweets or moments with the Sheik?
I have one. It was the one. Now there's a lot of Hulk Hogan stuff.
Yeah.
And Jabroni.
Well,
you can probably go down.
I found a whole bunch. Yeah.
You can probably go down his whole Twitter page and find all kinds of. But my favorite one was the one that he pinned, or the last, tweeted in 2018. You want me to show it or just read it?
You can just read it. That's fine.
Take a minute of your day. Take a minute of your day to be nice to someone, you dumb son of a bitch.
Nice. Nice.
I found a couple. I found this was because I was trying to find some of because I wasn't going to go to his Twitter and just try to find some of my favorites.
Yeah.
But because there was a lot that I really liked, but I found some that actually I liked that actually is shared on an article. And I'm like, oh, wait, I like that. I actually enjoyed that tweet from him because he was an avid beer drinker. And so one of the things he says, tweets, is who deserve to get the beer bottle up their ass till glass break, make them shit ass blood, tell me, or go F yourself.
Wow.
That's great.
And then another one is he's not a fan. He doesn't like. He never liked Justin Bieber.
Wow.
So one of the tweets he did was Justin Bieber, nice young man. He best singer. April Fool Day. Justin Bieber has squirrel dick and f his own
Oh my
ass to
gosh.
shit out his mother.
Okay. Okay, I got one that's April Fool's too. So one of my favorite ones that he posted was Hulk Hogan, the best of all time. April Fool's jabrones. And then my last favorite one. So Wendy's tweeted, "Hey Bubba, the beef is in our cheeseburgers, which are great, unlike that jabroni Hogan."
Oh,
And then the Iron Sheik tweeted back, "Wendy Bubba, did we just become best friends?" And then the best one is with Joe Exotic. And he put, "Joe Exotic belongs in jail for stealing the top of Hulk Hogan's hair."
damn.
I mean, I'm wearing a Joe Exotic shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. So
he just hated celebrities because he's got this one on this list that says Miley Cyrus win Golden Globes for whore.
Oh.
Miley Cyrus win Emmy Awards for "You Are Most Embarrassing Dumb Bitch. I'm going to break your neck and suplex
my
you
gosh.
forever, you jabroni."
Oh my gosh. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we wrap up the night, remembering the great Iron Sheik. Thank you guys so much for watching live. We are getting caught up on Talking Elite on Spotify, so if you want to go back and listen to some of our favorite episodes, go back on Spotify right now. Our linky is in the description down below, or you can go watch all of our classic catalog on here on YouTube on our playlist. We have some great topics from AEW to favorite wrestlers. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight and helping us remember the Iron Sheik. Next week, we are going to have a lead up to Forbidden Door. We are going to talk about some of the matches that have been announced, or probably hopefully will fully be announced, so we know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about what we think would be best to basically be the best part of the show, or how they can make the show even better. So we'll be talking about Forbidden Door. And then after that, just to give you guys a little teaser, we are going to be talking after our Forbidden Door episode. We'll be doing a whole episode on the death of kayfabe. Everything from, of course, the story we read tonight with Hacksaw and Iron Sheik getting, in trouble, to, the curtain call, to the steroid trial. So it's going to be a very fun episode and to go back and do some history on. So make sure you guys follow us for that. Also, we'll be back tomorrow night for our Rampage watch along, and then to debut our Collision, our new show Collision. We'll be doing a watch along here on the channel as well. And of course, we'll be back next week for Talking Elite, same time as always, 7 Central, Thursday night. Anything else, guys?
Much. There's a few comments we haven't.
Yeah, let's do some comments before we officially sign off. Ron Duffy. Hi, buddy. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Morgan, definitely enjoyed this. Thank you so much. We appreciate the love and support. David, not many people would have stuck it out. We were talking about the death, unfortunately, of his daughter. And then Jason with the last comment of the night. He remembers the Sheik being on Mad TV. So, Jason, just for you, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go watch some of those moments on Mad TV and Robot Chicken just to get a laugh tonight before I go to bed. So, without anything else, guys, thank you guys so much to my panel, Connor and Adam. You guys are always fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being part of the show tonight. So we'll see you guys next week for Talking Elite on our Forbidden Door episode. So stay tuned for our Twitter announcements down below. And we'll see you guys next time.